Hello, PHCC, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 19 of PHCC Rocks, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening all over America related to the National Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association. I'm your host, Joel Long, and we're coming to you from the great state of North Carolina today and Wisconsin, North Carolina is the worldwide headquarters of PHCC for today. And we're really looking forward to a great discussion today. And, we're doing these podcasts because we believe in telling the incredible stories of our members, chapters, events, and partners from all over the country that make PHCC rock. We're joined today by wonderful leaders from the Badger State. Is that right?
You got it.
All right. I got a little bit of history with the NC State and the Badger State that we may talk about. But joining us today is Jeff Beiriger. Man, I knew I was going to mess it up.
Well, Beiriger. His German name out of Wisconsin.
I look German, but these German guys, man, they're killing me, man. And who's the executive director of Wisconsin. And we think we're going to have two of the board members. We currently have Bernie Friedenfels. That's terrible.
Friedenfels. A good Bavarian name.
A Bavarian. See, we got Bavarians, and he's out in the wilderness of Wisconsin. And he's with Bernie's Water and Well, and he's the current president of Wisconsin. And we think there's this guy, Tyler Arndt, with Arndt and Son Plumbing, who's lost right now, but we think he's going to come in. And so when he comes in, he's a past president, and we're going to give him I think Jeff's going to give him a lot of grief when he comes in. So guys, welcome to the show. Hope you guys are well.
Yes.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's 8 o'clock.
Bernie's,
here. Go ahead.
Bernie's Well and Water.
So what did I say?
Water and Well.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Just make sure we got it right.
We have practiced for hours. And everybody sees it. So what time? It's 8 o'clock or so in North Carolina. And what time is it there?
1957, I think, is
19.
Yeah, we're a little behind, actually. The 7:16 in the morning.
It's 7:16. Well, Bernie, you've been up for what, 3 hours, 2 hours?
Yeah, it's going on 3 hours.
Yeah, you're a typical contractor. I heard that. I get up about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, whether I want to or not, even on the Saturdays and Sundays if I'm not working. So that was great to hear that you fit in with everybody. So guys, welcome. I really appreciate you taking the time early in the morning, and I know we got some coffee going, and so we're going to be on top of it. But the first thing I like to do is just get some background and tell us who you are, and give us a snapshot. And Bernie, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I've done a lot of different things in my life, and I actually worked for one of the railroads as a conductor on a freight train at one point. I did spend some time in the technology world, which taught me a lot of business skills and technology skills, which really helped me a lot today. Made a big career change 20 years ago and got into plumbing, and I was primarily their service guy for 13 years. And then that day comes along and you think you got a better mousetrap and you're tired of working for someone. So in 2015, I went off on my own and never looked back. And now I'm working 8 days a week.
Perfect. The American dream, right?
Yep.
There you go. All right, Jeff. And then wait a minute, you missed a meeting and they made you president. Is that what happened?
No, it didn't happen to me. But I remember my first meeting, they made me take my shoes off and I went to the bathroom so I'd come back.
Okay, well that's in the bylaws. That's in the bylaws.
That may or may not be true, but so Bernie's told me a story at one point. What was it? Bernie's 24/7.
Yep.
Well, you want to share it with that? I thought, my God, he's going to have people calling him 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But that's not exactly what Bernie's version of 24/7 was.
Well, my dream was to just work 24/7. That's 24 hours a week, 7 months out of the year.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I live in a beautiful resort area and I can have some time to play, but that didn't pan out. It actually is almost 24/7.
I like that. Okay, I'm gonna steal that. That's great. All right, Jeff. What about you? How did you planned your entire life to be the executive director of Wisconsin? Didn't you?
Boy, you're actually not too far off, because I right out of graduate school, I started working for associations, and I got out of school at a time where there was government and there was business, but there was nothing in between. So I'd never even heard of an association. I honestly didn't know where I was going to work, private sector, public sector. I couldn't figure it out because it's kind of this weird odd duck thing that associations are. But but I did it right out of graduate school. And I was in Chicago, where I'd grown up, and had a chance to go to work for the General Contractors Association, a couple of years at a mechanical association, then moved up to Wisconsin and spent 14, 15 years at a plumbing and mechanical group that was a PHCC affiliate, and left there, spent some time working for a law office before starting my own business. And it goes back to about 2005, 2006 that I've been working with PHCC as the executive director now. So yeah, pretty much my whole career has been spent working in the industry and then working with associations in the industry.
Oh, okay. Wow. So how many years experience would you say in association work? Adding all that up, my goodness.
High 30s,
Yeah.
now getting close to 40.
Okay. Good grief.
And I'm only 46 years old. That's the amazing
that's where I was going. Yeah.
Let's just leave that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You around here, everybody talks about me living in my fantasy land as an owner. So I understand. Yeah. We all have our fantasy lands. Tell us, one of the things that I've seen is all the different educational background levels with contractors and execs. Give us just a little bit of your educational background and how you got to where you are. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll jump in because mine's pretty easy. So I was a blue collar kid on the south side of Chicago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Our family was the sort of family where my brother was the first one to go to college, but the world was an open book. I mean, I had a shops class in my school. My folks had worked, union jobs at the railroad in Chicago. And so for me, it was whatever we wanted to do. There was no push to go to college coming out of our family. It just happened that I probably got pulled in by peer pressure. Some of my best buddies were going to college down in Illinois. And so like, well, I can delay life for 4 years, and went down there, but it wasn't really much more of a plan than that, honest to goodness. And spent 4 years there, worked for a couple of years in what was a sales job, but I had a marketing background, and there's a difference between the two. And so I left that job, got my graduate degree. But when I did that, I actually learned the world of collective bargaining as a graduate student. And so that first job that I had was bargaining labor contracts. And, basically I worked where we were bargaining labor contracts for about the first 15 or 20 years of my career. So, yeah, so I have a master's degree in business and economics, human resource management, entrepreneurship. Yeah.
So you're way more educated than Bernie and I probably. Before Bernie,
I wouldn't go there.
Different education.
I'm differently educated, but I'm not more educated.
The real reason I've started asking this question is, I was fortunate enough to go to engineering school. I had civil engineering and construction, and I got out and I came to work in our business, and I met one of the smartest men I've ever met in our business, who had a third grade education, and he could do anything, and he could think through anything, multiple layers of problems, and handle them and teach. And it was amazing. And so that's one of the reasons I ask, is because it's really, in today's world, especially, we're so stuck on this higher education piece when there's really all kind of paths. And so I think with PHCC, it really fits in. So that's one of the reasons I've asked.
I couldn't look at a blueprint and I can't think in three dimensions. So when I see people who can do that, I am just amazed at what the abilities they have are. And that's our industry.
The other great story about that, when I got out of state, I was here about a month, and we were doing something together, and he goes, "Did they teach you anything?" I mean, it was great. He was giving me grief after, whatever. It was good stuff. All right, Bernie, what about you?
Well, I went to a state school after high school, university, for 3 semesters.
Yeah.
And we had a come to Jesus meeting at the end of my 3rd semester, and they said it was best that I leave campus as soon as possible. And well, not quite, but I floundered around with some different jobs, and didn't really have a direction. I grew up in a blue collar family. My sister ran off to law school and left me at home, and mom and dad never really put much input into what I do. Just get a job, figure it out. So I was left to my own, and that's kind of why I did a number of different things. Like I said, I worked for the railroad. I went to work for a technology company, and we were in software and other digital services. So I was an account executive for them, and I traveled almost the lower 48. And I did a lot of travel, learned a lot of things, met a lot of very intelligent people. And the president of the company was just great to work for because, well, him and both the vice president, they didn't like answers like, well, it's good enough. Well, I can't do it. They were always like, okay, let's see what we can do to make this perfect. We may not get there, but let's work at it. So the attitude was, don't just settle.
Oh, yeah.
And those kind of things gave me a different insight to how to get things done, because sometimes you used to say, it's good enough, let's go. But they kept striving for the better edge, and that's why their small company was such a unique company. We did international business.
Mhm.
So then I guess my wife grew up here where we live, and one day I just said, it's time to go. And I said, find me a career where we live now. And she grew up with the people who own the first plumbing company I worked for, and she just called and said, I'm moving home, my husband needs a job.
Hmm.
I met with them, and they said, you got to go to apprenticeship school. Well, at that point I was in my 30s. And me and another guy that I worked with were the two oldest apprentices in our area. But again, seeing the upside potential, and I really fell in love with plumbing right away, and I just knew that's where I was going to be. So, I look at some of the jobs I had, and I always kick myself going, I should have got into plumbing right out of high school. But the skills and the education I got, street smarts from all the other things I did, traveling nationwide, it really rounded me out. Where right now, if I didn't have some of those skills running my own small business, there'd be a lot of things I would have no idea what to do.
Sure. So what I heard through all of that was a lifetime of learning.
Yeah.
And that's often missed, I think, in guys that get into positions like you was running your businesses. If you don't approach it, it's a lifetime of learning. You get stagnated or you fail for the next piece. So that's great stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bernie. So also PHCC being the oldest trade association, I love hearing the stories about each individual state and their history and information about those states, because I don't think we know that. I don't think a lot of times we share that. So Jeff, can you give us some maybe background of Wisconsin and like where the association stands now, number of members, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So the Wisconsin, as far as I am aware, actually predates the national. So we actually had our Master Plumbers Association up and running prior to the formation of the national, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if we were pretty deeply involved in some of those initial meetings. I know around our office, we've got some of the pictures from national conventions and such, and we dress down quite a bit now compared to some of those pictures that we have in the archive.
How you like those top hats? Yeah.
Top hats. And everybody's dressed to the nines. It's pretty impressive. And that they were riding trains and everything like that. And it's pretty wild to see that. But, so our history is probably not unlike a lot of organizations, but as we've kind of uncovered it, we just had our 125th or 20, we're a little older than that now, but we were planning 125th anniversary that COVID said we shouldn't hold, which was kind of a drag. But when we were looking back on it, we were finding things that we were very closely aligned with some of the manufacturers, and it was sort of their checkpoint for who was qualified to do installations of their product. So we had this movement that happened with sort of the industrial revolution. Everybody started racing towards the cities and out of the country. And well, when you concentrate all those people, you've got waste issues, you've got clean water issues, and our organization grew right along with the cities that were starting to really take off in size, and the need for plumbing and plumbers and an understanding of what we were doing was really kind of taken off right at that same time. But they looked at the manufacturers and said, we want to have somebody who's qualified to do the work. We didn't have our apprenticeship programs up yet. We didn't have there was no codes and licenses and all that other kind of stuff just yet. So for our part, we were really created as a partnership with a lot of the manufacturers and wholesalers who tried to use the association and did use the association to kind of improve the quality of the installations of their product and get better outcomes, because we were just doing more of the training and focusing on building out those apprenticeship programs. What's interesting then is that when we finally get to this point, and I think this is just always something that I always have to remind, especially even legislators now, there's a temptation to say like, codes, licenses, permits, inspections, enforcements, that's all a bunch of government regulation. Well, it's not really what it is. I mean, it was 100 years ago, it was the industry going to government and saying, we need you to do these because a self-regulating model won't work. Right in the aftermath of some of the antitrust legislation at the federal level, you couldn't do it, and you couldn't restrict the amount of, who could get product and who couldn't, and those kinds of things. So we needed this public and private partnership to put some of that together. And we were right there at the beginning on all of that too, sitting on those very first councils that decided our code and decided what our licensing laws would look like in Wisconsin. So it's been part of our history. And from that time forward, we've been right there at the table, working on all of those right up to today and the challenges we face now.
And it's similar. I think it's a really good point you made on the partnership with government. And, we need to continue to work on that being an equal partnership. And, our system is really set up well if we actually follow it. And so there's a lot of movement back and forth on that, but there's a good opportunity, I think, to make sure that we stay connected. In a lot of the legislative efforts we do across the country, trying to make sure we stay connected with our government, and instead of the conversation we tend to have that it's that government or somebody else's government, it's our government. It's our same with our association. I hear a lot across the country this year and in the past where, when somebody's talking about national, they say they instead of we, and it's an interesting. To me, the National Association is made up of contractors all over the country. And it's our association. But it's easy to get that way, especially when if things aren't going the way we want them. And I do that too. Then I'm like, well, that government. But anyway, so what about the association today? You got how many members you got, and what are you? And let's just go into the next question too. What are you really excited about from a positivity standpoint in Wisconsin?
Well, I'll answer the first question, then Bernie, maybe you want to think about that second question, and then I can kind of follow up on that. So we've got around 35 or 40 national members that are part of our group. That number has been higher. That number has been lower. It's been fairly flat for a period of time. We have a few, like every organization, you have a few that come and a few that go. Generally what we see is it's just, people that are leaving the business and just, don't transition either the business or transition the membership. And I think that's one of the things that we try to do, even as we see that happening, is to try to get an understanding of what is the association doing for you at the state level and at the national level that is so valuable for you. But I think my sense, and I've only worked in state associations and local associations, but I think people have a greater understanding of what we do at a state level simply because they know that we're the advocate on all that code and license and permits inspections piece.
You're closer.
I think it's harder for them to sometimes understand what the national is doing. In my particular case, I get the opportunity to listen to Chuck White and Mark, and talking about the sort of things they're working on at the national level. And then that's what we bring back to the members and try to sell here and try to get them to understand and, that you need to help support this. And it is more challenging because most of them feel like whatever ails them is probably more down the block than, 8 states over. But I think there's that sense, like I say, we've got that long history. Some of these folks that have been national members in our groups have been national members, for 75, 100 years. We have seen them transition it, but that's always a challenge, I think, is just getting each generation to kind of dive into what the benefits are and, go to the conventions as a young plumber and a young future business owner, and not just wait until your time comes and really take advantage of some of the opportunities that are there.
And I think that's a really good perspective, Jeff. I think if anybody's heard me talk about it this year, especially the association's got to be built from the bottom up, not the top down. And the stronger the locals and the states are, and then feeding that information to national and building it that way with those building blocks instead of thinking that it's national. And I say it this way, and that's maybe the wrong way. National is the most important piece. It's actually not. It's the national's there to serve the states and the locals and the members. And as long as we keep that perspective, we're more on a listening tour. I think it's that's how we should approach it when you get into the national group and the staff. I know the staff and Mark and Grayo is built that way, especially now that they want to listen first and then respond and try to improve what they're doing. That's a great point, though, that the local and the state is where everybody is tied directly. So yeah, I see it that way too. Bernie,
well, you had part 2 of the question was future, Bernie.
Yep. Well, first of all, I'm going to just really say hats off to Jeff Beiriger, because he has really kept our state association strong and focused. His connections at the state level with the government, and in particular the educators for all the continuing ed classes that we offer, it's almost hard to believe that it's as smoothly run as it is, because it is just, we have laid out where our classes are. There's a lot of email blasts that we get from Jeff. Nobody can say that they're not communicated with. So we talked about, how do we grow our revenues? Is it going to be with membership, or is it going to be with continuing ed? And the education is really on the top of our list, because we've got it nailed. I mean, Jeff built this system and it runs so well. I don't know percentage wise how much of the continuing ed we provide versus anybody else in the state, but it's a lot. We've dabbled in some other ideas for HVAC training. And Jeff, I don't know how much I can say about our meeting last week of where we were.
It's an open book.
Okay. Well, the local union down by Madison, Wisconsin, first in the country, bought an old Menards building, which is a lumber store, which is what, 60,000 square feet, Jeff?
It was, until they made it more.
Yeah, it covers 4 acres. And this is their union training facility. And so we went down there and had our meeting and got a tour. And it shows that Wisconsin is really serious about turning out the best plumbers that we can. They're going to build possibly a 2-story house inside of this building. They have welding labs, and it's just, you can drive a semi right into the building, and we're going to have they're going to have probably a weld drilling rig out back. So I guess tying in it to end it up is just saying our education is looking very bright for the future, and we have a lot of things to do.
I'll add to that. I mean, I think what Bernie's referring to, it is what they built as a house of imagination in Madison, in the sense of, if you don't know if you want to be a plumber because you don't understand what's going on there, you have to walk in this building and just go, look at the commitment that was made to training. And the interesting thing too is, and I told you, I started out where I was negotiating contracts. It's really been my experience over all the years that I've done that, is, when you pull your chairs around to the same side of the table, with the exception of those couple of days when you're bargaining your contracts, you're on the same side. You're working together with the local, and where they're there, they've done a pretty nice job of helping us to support the industry politically, helping to support the industry with the kind of outreach activities that they're doing. We tend to wave the flag of our plumbing licenses first and foremost before we start to wave, the flag of union and non-union. I mean, if people are really, really committed to that. So it's so exciting to be able to walk into this training center. But, Bernie's right. I think the future for us is trying to figure out how we take training to a new level. I mean, as an association, yes, you can use how many members do we have as a metric. But if you looked and said, but we send our magazine out to 10,000 plumbers every year, plumbing and HVAC people, and tell our story. So every quarter we send out a magazine to 10,000 people, and it's no cost to them. And a lot of people think they're a member because they get the magazine, which kind of prevents them from joining because they're not being cut off from all of the information. And we invite everybody to attend our seminars. Members get a discount, but everybody's invited to the seminar. And over the course of a year, we might do, 10 seminars, 12 seminars, and we're probably reaching another 1,500, 2,000 people from the industry. So the real question is what's the metric of success? And I think what our board has done is said, membership is important. Serving the industry is more important. And if the only thing I think we sometimes look at, and this is, boy, there's some really some people that really help us make that a possibility. And I'm going to, point out the relationship with Federated helps us immensely in terms of being able to say, we don't only have to focus on the membership piece as the metric. We do have the resources to go out and serve the industry. It's such a huge advantage. But I see the future is how do we make our education better? How do we reach more people? How do we and in what ways are we doing it? Zoom training we didn't used to do. Now we had a program not too long ago on cross connections, and we had people from 37 of our 72 counties on. There is no place I can go.
There's no way you could have done that 3-4 years ago, right? Yeah, that's
no,
right.
And there's no chance we could physically go anywhere in the state and be able to do a program where we have people from 37 counties showing up at the same time. And so trying to sort through all of those things is kind of exciting and reaching that HVAC market. I see something just popped up that our Tyler has he's in the building. He's joined us now. Hi, Tyler.
No,
hey guys.
Can you turn on your camera, or is that really going to be scary for everybody, Tyler?
Let's see.
Here we go, because we as good looking as we all are, we really got to have the cameras on, man.
Yeah, Bernie and I are biting our tongues to not answer that question, Tyler.
So are y'all going to say what you were about Tyler? What you said you were going to say when he actually got on here? I'm just kidding. Well, actually, he may not get. He can't figure. That's awesome.
I've only had 2 cups of coffee, and it's early where we're at, so I don't even remember what the hell I said. So I got nothing for you there.
Okay, so listen, I love as Tyler. Listen, if he can't get it working, that's fine. We'll just keep going. I don't know Tyler, so I don't know what he looks like. It may be better that he's not on there. I don't know. Jeff, that is such a positive thought process that we're hearing all over the country about, with what happened, coming out of the pandemic or whatever. And then, now taking the advantages, think about just this podcast, just being able to do this from North Carolina, Wisconsin, and then project it out, getting those messages out. And, when we all have big states, and, Bernie's out and he's telling us he's out in the wilderness, but y'all can stay connected a lot better without all the cost and travel and headaches of what you got to do to come across the state. So I just think it's a golden opportunity. And then the focus on education, I think nationally, state by state, we're seeing that where individual locals and states are really driving this thing because we have such a shortage of new workers. We're aging out. We've got all these problems, but we're really attacking it. And I really like that thought process I'm hearing all over the country. And it's a little bit different in every state. And you guys, your conversation about the collaboration between the unions and the non-union, and we really need to focus on the positive collaboration. And, a lot of times we act like we want to be divided, or the things that divide us or separate us are more important than the things that draw us together and that we're similar. And I think that as long as, with what you're hearing, it's a lot better focus. There he is. He joined us. Tyler,
hi guys.
Glad you're with us. Yeah, okay. We can hide. We don't need a young, good-looking guy on this call, man. What are you doing? So we are, a little bit into this thing, and Tyler, man, we're really glad. Give us you're the past president, right?
Yes, I am the past president. Bernie's the current president, so my role is still on the board, helping out. I would really like to serve another term in the future as president. Just because my term, it was during COVID, so we didn't really get to do a lot of the things that we normally would have. So, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'd really like to do it again.
You probably learned a lot too. I know this national thing that I have learned so much more. I've gotten so much more out of it than I've put into it. It's been amazing with people all over the country. So
Hey, Joel,
Yeah.
you need to get a background on him for people that are listening, because this is a guy that's, pretty decorated going through the apprenticeship program from PHCC. So
Okay, well, let's hear
Tyler,
it.
tell your story.
Tyler, let's hear it, man. Yeah, earlier, Tyler, we made them tell their stories, and so let's hear yours, man.
Okay. I started, I guess I started working with my dad on the weekends and summers and stuff when I was 7. So I followed him around pretty early, pretty young. And then I started my apprenticeship when I was 18. And then I think 2 years into my apprenticeship, I was out in Vegas. Someone nominated me for the Delta PHCC Apprentice of the Year award. So I got that.
Oh,
And
wow.
then
Okay.
the following year, let's see, down in New Orleans, we were, I was a 3rd-year apprentice, and I did the piping competition,
Okay.
and I took first in that.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I've gotten other little awards and scholarships and stuff through the PHCC national,
Wow. Okay.
and state levels. So yeah,
So
been
it's fair to say and this is bad, I put words in people's mouth, the apprenticeship program's helped you a little bit.
it's helped me tremendously. Yes, and the scholarships along the way were just a huge, tremendous help. Getting books for school, getting some hand tools, getting started. So that was tremendous in my apprenticeship.
And then, Tyler's dad, Dale, was a past president of our group as well. And that name is a name that a lot of folks will know, because he's been super involved in QSC. He's been at all the national conventions. And Tyler, how long ago you started going to conventions? You probably were still an apprentice when you were going to conventions.
Yeah, pretty much when I started my apprenticeship is when I started coming to PHCC, QSC, and it hasn't stopped since. So I enjoy it. I get a lot of education out of it. So I don't see why I would stop.
So forming that habit early really helped drive you to be better, is what I'm hearing. Is that?
Yeah, when you're involved in PHCC and national and the conventions, you get to know a lot of the older guys that have been around for a long time, and
that kind of hurt right there. The older guys, they're ouch.
Yeah, I heard that.
But you get to talk to them, you get to hear their stories, and where they came from and how they started and their background, and a lot of it is inspirational and makes you want to try harder. A lot of them are really pulling for you to do the best you can, and it's nice to have that. So it's not just the education, but it's like when you go there and you talk to these guys, it's like your batteries get rebooted and you're ready to kick some more butt.
Okay. All right. Let's get stuff. All right, Tyler, I'm back to glad you're on the call. Go ahead and turn your video off, man, so we look better. But anyway, I want to switch gears a minute. I like to do this in the middle, and because people really want to know about you guys. Tell us some things that nobody knows about you, that people may be surprised to hear, or that would be good to hear. Who wants to go first? Maybe something you do when you're not working or whatever.
Well, I'll take a shot at one. I mean, a couple of these guys may know it wasn't probably that hard to figure out because it was on my license plate for a long time. But so across the great state of Wisconsin is the Ice Age National Scenic Trail, and it's 1,121 miles and growing of hiking trails that go from Bernie's area down through the area where Tyler's office is, all the way up through the Eau Claire area on the northwest of state, and terminates. So it starts in Green Bay and it terminates at the St. Croix River as you go into Minnesota, and about 900 miles into an 1,121 mile hike. So it's a heck of a way to walk through. Yeah, so you're walking through the woods, but when you come out of the woods, you walk into all these small towns, and there isn't anywhere I go that I'm not seeing plumbing and heating shop that has been to one of our programs or another. So it's pretty cool,
okay.
but it's
That is pretty cool. So
it is a quest. It's a quest. There's no reason to do this other than just I'll stupidly drive 3.5 hours one way and 3.5 hours back so I can walk 3 hours in the woods that I have in my backyard. It's a quest. There's no other.
Wisconsin Appalachian Trail. We have the
it's a national scenic trail, just like the Appalachian Trail is.
That's great. Okay. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear. Who else?
I'll go next. I guess my wife and I are proclaimed foodies. We like to go to a restaurant, taste something really good, reverse engineer it, go home, learn how to season it, make it ourselves. Some of our best times, I mean, we have an incredible climate here in Door County, and we're not far off the shore of Lake Michigan at our house. And we've actually had a fire in the fireplace in July because you get a cold breeze off of Lake Michigan and you need a little bit of boost of heat. So our favorite things to do are sit on our deck, have a cocktail after work, make a great dinner, spend time with our kids. And I guess maybe the years I spent traveling all over the country kind of burned me out from traveling. I could care less if I see the inside of another hotel room. I used to go away for a week at a time, and now just taking a weekend in a hotel, I just can't wait to get home. So we're kind of homebodies, but we really don't just sit here and do nothing. We like to cook and eat. And if I stood up, you would see that I like to eat.
You and I, yeah, okay. You and I get more in common. So what's your address, Bernie? I'm just kidding, man. Making that kind of life is a direct result of what you've done though, right?
Yeah.
You know, that journey, man, that's great stuff. All right, Tyler.
Man,
you're just working and an apprentice.
It's hard to say. I feel like I'm an open book at this point. Just, a lot of people, I mean, I feel like they know I've been in a lot of magazine articles and a lot of interviews and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe if they actually read them, I feel like they probably know quite a bit about me. Outside of work, I love going hunting. I love going fishing. Last night we were actually out trolling for walleyes. But when I'm not doing something like that, we're on the motorcycle.
Okay.
We love getting the motorcycle out on the weekend and taking a ride, finding new places, new things, new scenery. It's lovely.
Okay. All right. So with that, and this will be a lot easier for Tyler, but if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give to yourself?
Ooh.
Tyler, that was three hours ago. So go ahead, Tyler. How old are you?
I am 29.
29. Okay. You don't get
you know what I tell my customers? I go, yeah, I'm 29 years old, but I got 22 years in the business.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Okay. If you were going to go back and tell your 10-year-old self, Tyler, what would you tell your 10-year-old self?
Just work hard and things work out in the end. If you put in the work, the reward is there.
Oh, okay. Who wants to go after that? That's pretty good.
I'll take a stab at it. I wouldn't change a thing that I did. I would tell myself that my diverse work history, like you said, it's a lifelong learning lesson, a lot of street smarts. And the more people that you come across throughout your careers, a little bit of the good rubs off on you and you learn a lot of different skills. So I would say you build your own luck, you build your own success, you become like the people you hang around with, you become the person you think about the most, and continually working at, success. One day that it will happen to you. And then when you get there, run with it.
I'll tell you, one of the things, guys, doing this, when you're doing these podcasts, this is the 19th one, and when I started this, I thought it was going to go in a certain direction, and that's, Bernie, what you just talked about is the direction that's been most impressive.
Thanks.
Is how grounded a lot of different people all over the country at different ages and different parts and different size companies and different all this. We think we're so different, but at the base of everything that we're trying to do, whether it's an exec or somebody Tyler's age, 29 years old, and with 22 years experience, but seeing all that together is pretty impressive, guys. It really, really, so thank you for that. Jeff, do you want to follow that?
Well, yeah, the thing that I think of, I mean, my 20-year-old self was one that was coming right out of sort of my formal education. And so the world I was living in was, if you wanted knowledge, you read a book. If you wanted knowledge, you sat in the classroom, and I went through college and all of that. You just kind of kept that up. When you get out of school, suddenly you realize, you've just been dumped onto, some road of life. But the real knowledge is by talking to other people and really, getting to know people. It's in that conversation, and it's going beyond the point of, just like these questions are. I mean, these are guys that are on my board, and I learn things about them just, because somebody asked a question that I haven't asked yet. We do our seminars all the time. We always tell people, if you're waiting for the instructor to teach you everything that you have a question about, good luck. Maybe they're going to get 50% of it because they guessed right.
Oh, yeah.
But if you got a burning question, I mean, there's so much knowledge when we have our exhibitors in the room, people that have been in sales in our industry for 20, 30 years. For goodness sakes, go and ask them a question, or a fellow contractor, somebody else. We've got day school instructors that teach our code classes and all. There's so much knowledge when we get a bunch of people together, but we just never really know it unless we start asking questions. And I probably would have spent more time focusing on learning from other people than necessarily just digging and trying to get everything out of a book or, by taking another class. So
that's great. That's great advice. Finding mentors that have already failed in a lot of ways, or they've already tried a lot of different things that you're getting ready to attempt to. I think that's helped me tremendously. And one of the PHCC connections for me along that line, Jeff, is I got out of engineering school and I thought I knew a lot, and then I had a best friend say, "Man, you are going to fail if you don't get involved with some different people." And that was my initial PHCC connection, to where he took me to a Kirkhalter class in Texas, and it completely changed my direction, because it was really, and it was other people. That's great stuff. So what, Bernie, you're a foodie, and so one of the questions, obviously, I like dessert. So what's your favorite? This is just for you, man. What if I wanted to try a new dessert, man? What would it be?
Real baked cheesecake, not the sugary instant box stuff, but real baked cheesecake. Okay, I'm taking that under advice. All over the country right now, when people hear this, they're going to go they're going to be coming to you. They're going to be calling you, man. All right. It in a lot of ways. I talk about the state associations, and we talked about it earlier, the success or failure of national, or we can build on the state successes, and then that builds a stronger national. And then, we're really on a listening tour this year with a new CEO, Mark Ingrao, and coming out of COVID. And so really, I'd like to hear from you guys on the programs you see. And I've already heard some of it with the apprenticeship and all that, but your view of things that are working for national, and maybe even some things that we should improve on, or thoughts on that if you have them. Everything's perfect. President is awesome. We don't need to do anything else. What?
Yeah, I'll dive in, because I probably have an opportunity to work more directly with the staff, maybe than Bernie or Tyler do. They're a tremendous resource. And as a staff person myself, I mean, I wish more people would pick up the phone and call us, because, Tyler, you're not going to remember this because, you're 29, but there's the old switchboard operators, the idea of saying, here's the incoming call, and somebody has to physically say, okay, where do I make the connection? I have, a long career of knowing a lot of people and saying, okay, well, you need to talk to this person at the Department of Safety and Professional Service. You need to talk to this person at the Department of Natural Resources. You need to talk to this person and that. The national staff is able to do that too. I mean, there's a lot of experience, and I think part of it is not even so much a program as much it is saying, hey, I'm stuck on something. I've got an issue, and having that access to my peers that have the same sort of things. I work mostly with the people that are in the 5-state region that we have. These are all good people. I mean, they're, I trust that I'm going to get good answers if I bounce something off of any of them. So to me, it's just that created opportunity and connection, and the shared thing that we have that just gives me access to people who have the answers that I need, more so than a program. I mean, there's lots of programs we like, don't get me wrong.
I think that's a really good point. It's an opportunity.
Well, we forget that staff is a resource, you know, and just they know so many different things. Just call them, ask them, and you could be talking to the right person, you know, in the second phone call you make. Who needs 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? We just call national staff and I can get there in 2. So works pretty good for me.
Connecting Kevin Bacon, man. This is it, man.
Now I'm hungry because it's morning and I just heard bacon. So
that's right. Bacon fixes everything. Does that cheesecake have bacon on it?
No.
Well, okay.
Maybe some Door County cherries and some chocolate.
There we go. Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
now I'm really hungry.
Okay. All right. Podcast is over. Let's go on. Well, okay. And, you know, I know one of our main focus is education. And we talked about that a little bit. This apprenticeship program is, and I'm not sure how it's really affecting you guys membership wise, but across the country, we're seeing it also just being a point of contact with it, being online and some different pieces, that it's really driving membership changes across the country. And I think that's a secondary benefit that we really didn't talk. You know, we really, when we started, I don't think we really thought it was going to be that massive of a change across in certain states. But your apprenticeship program now, I'm assuming, is really helping you guys with your contractors.
Yeah.
Big time.
I think we have a top shelf apprenticeship education program.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, you know, one of the things that's kind of interesting, and this is maybe just my own, you know, kind of personal thoughts on here, but we've talked about this as a board. Our state, like a lot of states, has gone to the point of saying, hey, let's create tax credits for people that hire apprentices. Let's create, different kinds of incentives. Let's connect the high schools. Let's do a lot of things, and we appreciate everything that they're doing. But I think what's kind of the missing part of that is sometimes is having to go to them and say, we've been doing this for a long time without your help. And while we don't reject the help, I think the thing that's been interesting for me to watch is that there was a period of time when everybody was sending everybody to college. And then there was a period of time where all of a sudden they tapped brakes on that, if not slammed on the brakes, saying, holy cow, we've got a lot of people with college debt. Maybe that's not such a good thing. And the reason for a little while we started to see some of these incentives come up is because I think the policymakers wanted to see fewer people have college debt. That didn't mean they wanted them in the trades because they recognized this was a good place to be. Now what we're seeing is they're finally getting their arms around, oh my God, yeah, we need people in every little community in Wisconsin who are qualified to do all of this plumbing and heating. And we've got to create this future generation because these folks get older and retire from their businesses and all. It's interesting to see the appreciation for what we're doing, kind of come, full circle now, and not just be about policy as much as it is about a true appreciation for what the trades are doing here in the state. But our numbers are, we've recovered in a very big way from 2008, 9, and particularly the last couple of years, we've seen huge numbers of apprentices come on.
Yeah, well, that's a great investment in our future too. I think, and you're having that opportunity coming out of the pandemic, especially, you're really already being set up in a position where this online partnership can work so well. I think we're just really in a great position. It's good to hear that you guys are doing it. I also noticed, when I went on your website, what is this Wisconsin Institute of HVAC? Is that really something, or is that just smoke and mirrors?
Well, it's probably more of an ambition than it is necessarily a reality right now. But I'll, share the background. And Tyler, you were, president during some of the period that we were getting this up and running too. We're the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association. 2 of the 3 letters, go to heating and cooling. And we as an organization felt like we were very, very much oriented toward the plumbing trade. Yeah. And there are more heating and cooling contractors in the state of Wisconsin than there are plumbing contractors. We don't have an ACA chapter. We don't really have a lot of apprenticeship programs or union trades programs focusing on HVAC and particularly residential HVAC. So we kind of have a blank slate. And so we started looking around and saying, about 60% of our members or so are companies that are plumbing, heating, cooling.
Yeah.
And even if we did nothing but serve our members, was there an opportunity to serve our members better by providing some sort of training for that heating and cooling portion of their businesses? And if that happened to allow us to grow the organization with companies that were straight line heating and cooling, that was good. But as I said, we focused on being an education association. We committed to creating programs that would deal with the heating side of the business, the cooling side of the business, air movement, and then some of the other aspects. We kind of created 4 different areas where we would do our focus programs on HVAC, try to present 1 or 2 programs a year. And the institute part of it is that if somebody completed all of those, they wouldn't be going through an apprenticeship, but we would recognize them as being sort of a cut above. We have a logo that goes with it. Somebody can earn a patch and all that by going through our classes. It's the idea of somebody taking enough courses through us that aren't product training, but are really the nuts and bolts of HVAC, and trying to move forward in that area. So it's aspirational, but that's the direction that we're trying to move our organization slowly but surely, is to do more for that half or 2/3 of the industry.
Good God, I want to move to Wisconsin. So with what's going on with national, that is incredible to hear, Jeff. I don't think when I saw it on your website, I like that snapshot, the Wisconsin Institute of HVAC. To me, that looks like something we can copy all over the country. That looks like something that we need to project. I mean, I thought it was beautiful when I saw it. That's why I asked, my God, that looks so big and formatted. That's why I asked if it was smoke and mirrors, because my God, but it sounds like your board has chosen a path forward to bring in other contractors that don't necessarily see PHCC in Wisconsin as anything beyond plumbing. I mean, that's to me especially in the location on your website. When you go to it's boom, it's right there. And so I really thought that was impressive. So.
We've realized that training is huge for us, and like, again, Jeff's done a phenomenal job at it, and all of us agree that that's the continued direction.
Yeah, the obviously you guys are huge and winning on that front. Jeff, good grief, Jeff, that's great. Anything else on your education piece? I know there were some business things there, and I saw, and anything else?
When I was president, I saw that, I recognized, hey, we're training all the plumbers. Yeah. What about the rest of the staff, and to make the business run?
Oh yeah. Okay.
The owner, obviously, they could use some business classes. What about HR? There's points that I feel like we had been missing. Yeah. Why just train one person in the business? Let's train the whole entire business. We do
tend to focus on the technical pieces, don't more.
Yeah. So we added a number of classes throughout the last 2.5 years to focus more on that, and those have been doing good for us too.
Okay. So guys, one of the things I really is that we've gotten into in a lot of cases, and you may or may not have, but a book or a podcast recommendation. Most of the leaders I talk to now in PHCC read a lot, or they listen to podcasts all the time. They're really, and some of them are really directly business related, and some of them are not. But I like to give those out because we learn from each other. The one that I wanted to talk about was a podcast that I'm a guy that you guys may know him. Mark Madison is a good friend of mine, and known him for years. He's been to our business a couple times, but and been in some other seminars with him. But his podcast, Mark Madison, On Books and People, really is a nice. And of course, with Mark, it's really personal with people. So I would encourage you to listen to his podcast, and most of it's about people. It's really, really a nice personal podcast he does. I recommend that. Do you guys have anything you want to recommend?
Not in particular.
No.
I don't have any in particular. I kind of hop around more business focused podcasts, even if it's not related to our trade in particular. Yeah. You can still pick up on so much from other industries. It's crazy. So I just try not to stay in the tunnel. I try to widen the vision.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you listen to a lot of podcasts. You don't sit down and read. Is that?
Yeah, I'm
That's
not too
okay.
much
No,
of a guy to sit down and
no, no,
read.
no. That wasn't a negative. I wasn't a negative, but I've enjoyed some of the, like my son listens to podcasts and he listens on them at double speed, and I'm going, what? And so, like he listens to a lot of different things, but we'll be, and he'll be listening to it at double speed, and then if there's something that really hits him, he'll stop it, and then and you just go, oh wow. So it's just trying to the speed of taking things in is pretty interesting with the different generations. I'm looking at
I do 30,000 miles a year in the car. So, I got 500 hours of windshield time. And if it wasn't for the podcast and audiobooks, I think I'd probably go stir crazy. I like one that's called Listening to America. The guy who does it, it's published by Governing Magazine. The guy who does it is Clay Jenkinson. Clay he's a humanities scholar, who's based out of North Dakota, the center of all things humanities, right? And sorry, my friends in North Dakota, but in any event, he's a very even-handed guy who takes a look at some of the things that are torn out of news and ties them back to some of the history. I think it's just so valuable to understand sort of the where we came, where we are, where we might be going, aspects of it. The other one that I enjoy is a Freakonomics podcast, just because they talk about all sorts of just eclectic things that I don't know anything about and question all of your assumptions. And I think that's the cool thing is like, you really think about what do we really know and how much do we know because we heard somebody tell us something.
Yeah.
And what you find out is most of us don't really know that much. We just kind of believe it's true because we heard it from somebody else, or we just don't know anything about it. So, boy, there's so much opportunity to learn about things we don't know anything about. I love that stuff.
Well, that's true. Good grief.
Joel, I wanted to add one thing if I could.
Sure.
I want to give some credit where credit is due to my plumbing instructor from my apprenticeship, John W. Coleman III. And anybody that went to school under him knows that he was very tough. He was a very good instructor. It was through Northeast Wisconsin Technical College in Green Bay. And John one day put the screws to us and said, when you guys are sitting there on lunch in your truck and you're listening to the radio, take 2 minutes and take a product brochure or the box from something and read it.
Oh my God.
He said, he goes, I can make a test question on installation of products and nobody reads the manual. For example, a very simple chrome angle stop. How tight do you make the nut on a copper pipe? It says it right on the box. And, we talk about podcasts for education and seminars. A lot of this education is right in front of us.
Sure.
If you read the instructions, because if you keep doing and repeating history and you ask the guy that you work with who's been doing it wrong for 25 years, you didn't learn anything. So that goes back to my training from the PhD when I sold software. And he said, always try and improve what you're doing. And when John said, take a higher interest in your trade, it's not just a way to make money. And if everybody did that, I mean, when we're seeing it, there's just more and more guys. Tyler's a good example of a young man, very invested in his industry. That's what makes this so fun and refreshing.
Yeah, it really is. And Bernie, the all-in approach is something that I think sometimes as Americans we're kind of waffling on, but young people, older people like Jeff, all of us stay. Ouch. Yeah, I know. Stay all in. I mean, why not be all in if you're going to do something? And that's what I hear from both of you guys, especially Tyler and Bernie, that you're all in. But that reading, I love. We do, and we act like we don't have time to do these things. It's really been interesting this year with me doing all this national stuff and president stuff, and I keep having people ask me, well, are you hanging in there? Or it's framed like it's a negative. And I'm actually doing better in my business. I'm actually doing more because I'm not wasting any time. It's been interesting. And I think your approach that you're talking about being all in and reading and taking the advantage of all that in a lifetime is great, Bernie. I think that's where we need to end, guys. I would like, are there any other comments or thoughts or something you want to end on? I think we've covered it.
I like it.
I think we got her.
Well, guys, I really appreciate all the time, especially getting up. Well, actually, it wasn't getting up earlier, except for Tyler. He was probably asleep and being so young as he is, and fishing all night. But it's really been an honor to have you guys on, and congrats on all the work and the partnership and everything you're building in Wisconsin. Because when you build it in Wisconsin, it helps the rest of the country, and we really appreciate what you're doing. So, guys, thanks a lot, and thanks so much for taking time to listen to our podcast today, to this episode. I want to thank Jeff and Tyler and Bernie for being the great guests today. And PHCC Rocks is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson from GSM Services and Charlotte Parham from PHCC National. And thanks for all the time today, and please keep giving us reasons and keep looking for reasons why PHCC rocks. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.